Shalom Chabrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. Here it is, April the 28th, 2017, and the world just seems to be coming apart at the seams. That is, in all regions there. Be looking at today, we're going to look at North Korea, kind of go over some of the situation that's happening there, just how much influence Russia and China are having over this situation and world events here, as well as we're going to take a trip back looking at Israel this week and their strike on a arms depot near the Damascus airport inside of Syria. How's that playing out? And a very interesting article that I discovered there. Just recently, a man there in the Middle East that discusses why would Israel side with Nusra and Al-Qaeda in the first place. Although that is an alleged assertion there, it does seem to be evident, though, that Israel has aided the Nusra Al-Qaeda movement there, although it's not an official statement there, in favor of that of President Bashar al-Assad. Let's get right into the news now here. Starting off here with Sputnik News, very interesting article that we have here. The Powder Keg Peninsula, Chinese troops on Korea border prepare for combat. What in the world is a Chinese troop preparing for combat here when, from what we gather from Western media, is that China is all there in order to be able to help out President Trump to be able to bring down Kim Jung Un, the dictatorial leadership there in North Korea. But what's interesting, though, China is willing to participate in any way other than a non-military means. But at the same time, China has a massive amount of troops, 150,000 troops there along the border there with North Korea there. That's something that is stated in this article here on Sputnik, as I was sharing with you. It says Chinese troops stationed along the border with North Korea have been placed on high alert, according to the Japanese newspaper Yomiuri Shimbun. That's pretty serious right there. It's actually stage 2, and it seems like a war could be imminent. Now, some Western analysts are beginning to think that perhaps that China is going to go in there and try to take out Kim Jung Un. Now, I'm not saying that China may not have changed their posture on it, but the more we begin to look at this and we see how that China moved in the Dongfeng 41, the intercontinental ballistic missile, back last year, we reported that here on Israeli News Live, and at that time we were thinking, is it for Japan? Is it for the United States, continental United States? What's it for? We knew that China and North Korea have a very close relationship, and as we reported as well before, 1961 signed an agreement, an alliance between North Korea and that of China, vowing to protect either or the other in the event of any kind of war or invasion. And there's no doubt Kim Jung Un would come to the aid of China at any day of the week whatsoever. But not to mention 81% of their trade is done by China. But also Russia has sent down military equipment, including the Balkan 3 defense missile system as well, that takes out things like the the Tomahawk missiles that rained down on Syria recently, 59. The Balkan 3 was not in Syria at that time. The S-300, S-400 system was. And of course, only 23 of those missiles struck their target, leaving some to wonder what happened to the other 36 missiles. Well, I kind of veer to think myself that Russia did take out some of those missiles, but no one never said much about it because they didn't take them all out. And it's kind of an embarrassment for Russia to only take out a fraction of these missiles. But at the same time, Russia did not lose any time in being able to say that the U.S. Tomahawk cruise missiles are not performing up to par these days. And of course, it is true. During the strikes on other places in the world, especially that in Iraq, we have more than a 90% success rate. What went wrong in Syria? Or could it have been Russia using some of their electronic jamming devices that caused these missiles to go some other place? Don't really know the answer to that, but my point is that China and Russia seem to be very much on par in agreement. We shared that with you not long ago when this article here came out here. Amidst escalating tensions in North Korea, China makes an appeal to Russia. They needed to get some help, and Russia had wasted no time, as we showed you, the Balkan 3 missiles going down on the train system reported by already happened, and also that of tanks that we shared with you again just the other day and the movement of those troops there. But then we get more interesting things that are happening as well. China and Russia have similar positions on North Korea issue, Beijing, on this right here. And we find out in the article, Beijing reaffirmed readiness to continue working with Moscow to de-escalate the situation around North Korea. But it was Wang Yi that made one of the most provocative comments on this. He says, Foreign Minister of China Wang Yi, Deputy Foreign Minister of Russia, Gennady Gelovy, will participate in a ministerial meeting on the UN Security Council of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Russia and China have similar positions on the issue of the DPRK. Russia is making efforts in this direction. China would like to continue cooperation with Russia and other interested parties to find the right solution to North Korea issue, said Jing said. Jing added that China remained committed to the UN resolution of North Korea and opposed any actions violating the resolution as regards particular measures that Beijing might take in case of new Pyongyang missiles and nuclear tests. Jing said it was a hypothetical issue with many speculations on it. So it's very obvious that China and Russia have no desire whatsoever to see any type of military action against North Korea, and also seem to be vowed to do something about it. Backing up to our previous article right here, the Powder Keg Peninsula, the Sputnik reports about, another quote in here, and this is the one that's really concerning, says the overt presence of Chinese forces would dissuade the U.S. from going into that territory because they would run the risk of inviting that larger conflict themselves, TAC told Business Insider. Now, that's pretty provocative right there. That's like letting the United States know, if you attack North Korea, even though President Trump has kind of backed down a little bit of an all-out invasion and spoke about more recently using a surgical strike on the nuclear facilities that Kim Jung Un has, China seems to be very clear that an overt presence of Chinese forces would dissuade the U.S. from going into that territory because they would run the risk of inviting that larger conflict themselves. That seems to be very evident that China will get involved in protecting North Korea. I don't know how you guys look at that, but that's the way it seems to pan out to me no matter which way you go in that. So what could North Korea end up being? As so many have said, including Russian officials, including Chinese officials, it could start World War III. Well, let me tell you something. One little DPRK nation, North Korea People's Republic, by itself alone in the United States trying to take this guy out is not going to cause a World War III if it's just the two of them going at it. Of course, it's kind of like David and Goliath. You're dealing with Goliath, the United States, and David, the little Kim Jung Un. I don't want to make it look like he's some righteous guy by no means. He is certainly threatening nuclear annihilation to many of his neighbors, including Japan, Australia, the United States, South Korea, etc. So the young man is very unstable. And so I don't imply that as him being a good guy when I mentioned David here, just talking about as far as size-wise. But nonetheless, he does have the ability to use nuclear weapons, and that is a major issue. But when China and Russian officials speak about spiraling out of control to a third world war, that's because China and Russia would be willing to get involved to protect North Korea. That's where the trouble comes in. So I think President Trump is under a lot of pressure with that shadow government that he's dealing with there in the United States. Japan also tells its citizens to prepare for attack from North Korea. And that comes from amidst the rising tensions. The United States began an earlier deployment of the Terminal High Altitude Defense System called THAAD that was deployed in South Korea. Now that, being that high altitude defense system also is a concern for Russia and China because, as they state, this would do nothing regarding any of Kim Jong Un's capabilities because they're too close to the border and they wouldn't need the THAAD system to knock down this system. I'm sure the Patriot would probably do sufficient enough with anything Kim Jong Un could use. So therefore, Russia and China believe that the THAAD missile system was deployed there because of Russia and China, and understandably so from the information we share with you now. The Dongfeng 41 on north of North Korea there, another intercontinental ballistic missile, high altitude system that the THAAD would be able to take out. The Balkim is not a high altitude system, but Russia has not deployed the S-300 or the 400 there, but China has. So what's going on? Well, it's very serious, and yes, it is certainly a major, as they call it, a red flag. It is a serious situation that could turn into a nuclear war on a global scale, not just North Korea. Israel bombs our arms depot near Damascus, intercepts a target from Syria. Speaking of the drone that Israel took down just the other day, that was on Thursday. All the events happened on Thursday. Early morning hours, Israel bombed an arms depot near the Damascus airport. And then Syria sending a drone over its territory, the territory of the Golan Heights there. Israel takes out that drone. Now this is bringing a lot of tensions here in the region there, and you cannot help but wonder, why is Israel constantly getting involved in striking targets that are clearly that of President Bashar al-Assad? Now I know that Prime Minister Netanyahu has stated several times in the past there they have targeted convoys of military equipment that is headed to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, which is a threat to Israel, and I do understand that and respect those decisions that are made regarding those as well. But what I'm seeing more and more and more is that Israel is not just targeting Hezbollah, but rather targeting the Syrian army, giving such ungodly and evil forces such as al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda the upper hand. And then I ran across this blog spot right here, Syrian Revolution Commentary and Analysis, and this is on, this one actually came out back in 2013, but it's still, the comments that are written in this article are very timely, especially in a situation where the Syrian army is suffering defeat after defeat, and it's not because of not getting an upper hand on ISIS or being able to deal with al-Nusra and Al-Qaeda, but it's because of whether Israel is striking the Syrian military or the United States is making heavy blows to the Syrian Air Force, both back when it was in Deir el-Zor back last year, or this year, where the 59 Tomahawk cruise missiles are landing on Syria's airport because of an alleged chemical attack that was done by these al-Nusra bunch of thugs that are over there that are willing to stoop so low as to gas the Syrian people and then blame it on Bashar al-Assad. Aaron Erdem, as we brought this out before, clearly has shown these things to be true. And he brought this out to the parliament in Turkey, ended up landing himself in jail for going public with this information. So I'm very much skeptical when they blame Bashar al-Assad for gassing his own people when the evidence clearly is the other way around. And there's been too much professionals that have also pointed out by the White Helmets video that came out about that this was not a sarin gas attack. Even the White Helmets man that was washing off one of the victims should have died from washing the guy off, but he didn't. Of course not. It's all staged propaganda in order to justify getting support by the United States public as well as others to go in and take President Bashar al-Assad out of power. And that's what we see with all the different strikes that are going on. Not to mention that the United States and British forces are inside of Jordan down there, already crossing over into the border. According to one Israeli news site that's a Russian language site we shared with you the other day there, in order to get to the east side of Damascus. I believe they're planning on an attack on Damascus eventually. We've already reported how that the U.S. military has brought in military equipment there to Lebanon for supposedly to beef up Lebanon's border with Syria because of all the clashes. But here's where comes down the issue. Some of the good points that he makes here in this article that I really find interesting here, and again, I don't agree with several of the points that he makes in the article, but he goes on here to say, countless Israeli leaders, military officials, intelligence chiefs, strategists, and others have declared their preference for the survival of the Assad regime over any alternatives on offer throughout this conflict, for good reason, as he states here. And of course, he calls it the Israeli stolen Golan. I don't agree with that. But anyway, he says the Assad regime has not fired a single shot over the Israeli border in 40 years, nor even organized symbolic actions near the border, nor even conducted any serious diplomatic offensive. And if President Bashar al-Assad has not done any of those things in 40 years, why would Israel then be willing to go and launch strikes against the Syrian army? Justifying because a mortar fell over into the Golan. Now understand Prime Minister Netanyahu wanting to protect the Israeli people and hold accountable for these mortars falling over. But you know, we have to use a little bit better intelligence. If the mortars are coming over because of al-Nusra or Al-Qaeda or something of this nature here, target the one that's shooting those those mortars over into the border on the Israeli side. That's who should be targeted. And instead of rendering constant medical care, which I know Israel offers medical care as well for the civilians, and I have to say, even if it's your enemy, you need to offer medical care. That's what the Torah states. That's the way that Israel should keep their law. So I have to say that I appreciate the fact that they do it. But offer it also for the Syrian military when they're wounded. Instead of, targeting them. But you can't help but wonder what's going on. Because as the article states in here, none of the groups fighting the Assad regime, whether the secular National Free Syrian Army, the various Islamic groups, which I mentioned al-Nusra, have ever shown any inkling whatsoever of wanting to have anything to do with Israel. And he goes on to say as well, and they do not believe that Israel has any right to the Golan. And yet at the same time, back in 2011, President Bashar al-Assad was willing to work with Israel in a peace agreement and was calling upon Lebanon to acknowledge that Israel has a right to be a state. He literally was, I forget the exact wording that he used on that, but he was calling on Israel's right to exist. Now, this is what President Bashar al-Assad was doing. But instead, you think we're going to get this with al-Nusra, al-Qaeda, just because we give them a little bit of aid and we send a bunch of bullets over to them? No, we're not going to get it. Those bullets are going to turn on us one day and they're going to be used against the Jewish people. And that's my concern there. Anyway, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live. We do need your support in keeping these broadcasts going. And so if you'd like, you can also go right here on our YouTube channel, right above the subscribe button. We have a place you can donate there. And as well, we are looking at going, Israeli News Live is going to satellite television across the United States into 20 million different homes there. If you are interested, or if you actually have a business that could benefit from sponsoring Israeli News Live on air in the United States, where we can reach more households and kind of offset the propaganda that's going on throughout the United States, come in there and try to bring a little bit of balance in this, contact us. Give us a shout out. You can reach me at stephenbenun@gmail.com. That's BENNUN @gmail.com. Stephen, STEVEN. And we would like to see if you would like to help us do that. And if you are just one of our regular listeners and you don't have that type of ability, you don't have a business or anything, but you would like to be a part of helping us reach further with our prophetic impact and our news broadcasts there, going into the United States and really reaching a lot of people there, please show it in your support of this work. You can also visit us at IsraeliNewsLive.org. You can donate there. And as well, at the end of the news broadcast here, we will have our address here in the Czech Republic, at P.O. Box 46, Czech Republic, 15006, Praha 56. And we'll have that at the end of the broadcast here if you would like to send a donation by mail. Let us know what your thoughts are. We appreciate it. Let us know in the comments below as well. And Baruch Hashem, blessings to all of you. Shalom.